Welcome to Reddit Confessions.
The photo wasn't even clear. Blurry, grainy, the kind of image you'd scroll past without a second glance. But I didn't scroll. My hand froze above the screen, my thumb trembling, because no matter how pixelated it was, I knew that hair. That red hair. My wife's. Alyssa Carter. 38 years old. English teacher at Brookdale Academy. My wife for 12 years. The mother of my daughter. And in that photo, she wasn't standing at the Eiffel Tower with her senior class, smiling like the devoted teacher she liked to play. She was kissing someone. Not just anyone. A boy. My pulse hammered as I enlarged the screen. Paris, at night, with the same glittering in the background. Alyssa leaning in close, lips locked with him. His face was half-turned, but I didn't need more than the jawline, the posture, the cocky tilt of his chin. Jason Miller, former student, barely 21. It hit me like a punch. The photo wasn't public. It had been uploaded to a private Instagram story by one of the seniors on the trip, Samantha Reyes. Gossip queen, chronic oversharer, the kind of teenager who filmed teachers for TikTok clout. This wasn't meant for the world. Just a close friends list. But someone had screenshotted it. And that someone had sent it to me. No caption. No explanation. Just the image and a message. You should see what your wife does in Paris. I sat at my desk, the Boston skyline glowing behind me through floor-to-ceiling windows, the photo burning into my retinas. My first instinct wasn't rage. It was calculation. 12 years as a trial lawyer had trained me to separate fact from impulse. Fact, Alyssa was in Paris. Fact, she was supposed to be chaperoning students. Fact, she was kissing Jason Miller. Impulse wanted me to throw my phone, to call her and scream, to demand answers she'd never give me honestly. But fact told me to wait, to watch, to build a case. Dad, my daughter's voice carried from the hallway. Soft, uncertain. I shut off the screen before she could come closer. Yes, sweetheart. My voice came out steady, lawyer steady. She peeked around the doorframe, clutching her sketchbook. Can we order pizza tonight? Of course, I said, smiling for her sake. Anything you want. She grinned, skipped down the hall. As soon as she disappeared, I turned the phone back on. The photo glared at me again. My wife in Paris, kissing a boy young enough to be her student, because he had been her student. My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles turned white. This wasn't an affair. This was something worse. A violation of trust, of ethics, of everything Alyssa pretended to stand for. She had built her identity on being the beloved teacher, the mentor, the role model, and I had just been handed the weapon that could burn it all to the ground. I stared at the message again, reading it like evidence in court. You should see what your wife does in Paris. Cold spread through me, sharper than fury. I didn't reply. I didn't ask who sent it. I didn't need to. Whoever they were, they had given me exactly what I needed. The photo, the truth, the beginning of her end. I set my phone down on the desk, leaned back in my chair, and let the silence of my office fill the room. Because in that moment, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would not confront her. I would not scream. I would not warn her. No, I would destroy her. And that's how it began. The night I decided my wife would never teach again. I didn't let Alyssa know that I had the photo. Not yet. Instead, I played my role. The supportive husband, the understanding lawyer who encouraged her passion for teaching. But while she was across the Atlantic, pretending to be the nurturing mentor, I started digging. Her iPad was sitting on the nightstand. She never remembered to unsync her devices, which meant every message, every email, every app notification she got in Paris was quietly mirrored back to Boston. That little oversight was the kind of thing that ruined careers. I hadn't touched it yet. Not until I understood the bigger picture. The bigger picture was Paris. Alyssa had been preparing for this trip for months, planning, fundraising, endless meetings with the Board of Education. She had told me it would be the opportunity of a lifetime for her students. I had believed her. But as I thought back, I realized she hadn't wanted Jason Miller to go. She had fought against it at first. I remembered the night it came up. She was pacing in the kitchen, waving a wine glass like a gavel. He's graduated, Marcus. He doesn't belong on a senior trip. It sets the wrong precedent. Then why's he asking to go? I'd asked. Because he thinks it'll be fun. Her tone had been clipped, defensive. He'll distract the other students. It's a bad idea. She dropped it after that. But a week later, she pushed for him to be included, said he'd be a student assistant. that his French minor in college could help with translation. She fought hard, harder than she'd ever fought for anything school-related. And the school agreed. Jason Miller was officially added to the roster. I should have seen it then, because Jason wasn't just a graduate. He was Alyssa's star pupil, the boy she bragged about at dinner parties. Brilliant, charming, destined for greatness. The boy who used to linger after class with that smirk, who knew exactly how to make her laugh a little too hard. The boy who, in Paris, started flirting with her openly. I know because I saw the proof. On Samantha Reyes' Instagram, buried between filtered cafe shots and Eiffel Tower selfies, there were videos. Harmless on the surface. Jason joking with the group, telling stories, being the center of attention. But my eyes weren't on him. They were on Alyssa. The way she leaned in too close. The way her hand brushed his arm just out of frame. The way her smile wasn't the professional, guarded smile of a teacher, but the nervous, eager smile of a woman desperate to feel young again. The students didn't notice. Or maybe they did and didn't care. But I noticed. And once I noticed, I couldn't stop seeing it. She thought she was being careful. She thought no one would connect the dots. But teenagers are ruthless archivists, capturing everything. And one of those captures was already in my possession, the kiss. At home, I sat in silence with the city humming outside my window. My wife was across the ocean, living out some Parisian fantasy with a boy who wasn't even old enough to rent a car, and I was here with our daughter, holding the first piece of evidence in what would become her trial. Because that's what this was now. A trial. And Alyssa had already started losing. That night, her iPad buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up, and Jason's name lit up the screen. The iPad buzzed on the nightstand just after midnight. I sat in the dark, the city skyline casting faint blue shadows through the blinds. My daughter had been asleep for hours. The house was quiet, except for that persistent vibration. When I picked it up, Jason Miller's name lit the screen. My chest tightened. Part of me didn't want to open it, didn't want to see confirmation of what I already knew. But lawyers don't look away from evidence. We study it. We catalog it. We use it to win. I unlocked the device. Jason's first message popped up. Room 214. Same floor as the faculty, but at the far end. Nobody will notice. Another bubble appeared seconds later. You coming? I scrolled up. There was more. Flirty exchanges from earlier that day. Inside jokes. Little jabs that crossed lines no teacher should ever cross. Alyssa had written things like, "Stop making me laugh. You'll give us away." Alyssa, I'll check in after lights out. Just don't make it obvious this time. This time, the words landed like a gavel striking. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was a pattern, a routine, something they'd already done before. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding, but my mind ice cold. She was in Paris, sneaking into a hotel room with a boy who used to sit in her classroom, and she thought she was clever enough to keep it hidden. But she hadn't counted on her iPad syncing. She hadn't counted on me sitting here in Boston, watching it unfold like a live feed. For a moment, my reflection glared back at me from the glass of the screen, calm, expressionless, like a judge listening to testimony. Then another message appeared from Jason. "Hurry up, Mrs. C. I've been waiting all year for this." I locked the iPad, placed it gently back on the nightstand, and sat in the silence. Alyssa thought she was playing some dangerous game of romance in Paris. What she didn't realize was that the trial had already begun, right here, in our bedroom. And the evidence was piling up. I didn't sleep that night. Because I knew the next notification could be the one that sealed her fate forever. I didn't have to imagine what happened next. The iPad told me. Messages pinged between them like clockwork. Alyssa sneaking out under the excuse of a late check-in with the chaperones. Jason telling her to keep her key card low so no one noticed. Flirtation disguised as logistics. And then, silence. The kind that said she'd arrived. I stared at the screen long after the last message appeared. The digits, 214, seared into my brain. Hotel room, 214. The next day, Boston was gray with rain. I sat in my office pretending to review briefs while replaying it all in my head. I didn't know yet that someone else had been paying attention that night in Paris. Someone far less discreet. Her name was Samantha Reyes. 17, loud, dramatic, obsessed with documenting every moment of her life. The kind of girl who lived behind her phone. Alyssa used to complain about her constantly. That girl thinks she's TMZ. Apparently, TMZ was exactly what I needed. According to what I later pieced together, Samantha had been wandering the hotel halls past curfew with a friend, giggling, trying to catch footage of another couple sneaking into a room. Teenagers thrive on scandal. But instead of classmates, she caught the sound of muffled laughter and footsteps coming from room 214. Curiosity won. She peeked through the narrow opening as the door clicked shut and saw Alyssa, my wife, slipping inside with Jason Miller. Samantha didn't shout. She didn't say a word. She just did what came naturally. She pulled out her phone. The photo wasn't perfect, her hand shaking, the hallway dim, the angle off. But the blur of Alyssa's red hair, Jason's tall frame, their mouths pressed together. God, it was enough. More than enough. By morning, Samantha's friend had posted the image privately, tagging a handful of classmates on a close friend's story. A stupid teenage prank. A digital whisper. But whispers have a way of becoming echoes. And echoes always find their way home. Because a day later, that same photo was in my inbox. I printed it on thick paper, slid it into an envelope, and sealed it shut, knowing exactly who would open it next. By the time the Paris trip returned to Boston, the rumors had already landed before the plane touched down. Whispers spread fast in private schools, faster than any official announcement, faster than truth itself. Mrs. Carter was seen sneaking into a student's room. No, it was an ex-student, Jason Miller. No, it was a tourist she met at a cafe. Every version made its way through the senior class within hours. And Alyssa, who had always thrived on being adored by her students, suddenly found herself the subject of their gossip. At home, she tried to act normal, but I watched the paranoia creep in. She poured her wine faster than usual, her eyes darting when her phone buzzed, her smile thinner and shorter-lived. She laughed at our daughter's stories, but her voice cracked in places it never used to. She knew something was unraveling. She just didn't know how much. Meanwhile, I worked quietly. Like a prosecutor building a closing argument, I gathered what I needed. The photo was printed, enlarged, and sealed into a crisp manila envelope. I cross-referenced the Paris hotel receipts, noted the late check-ins, the overlapping timestamps with Jason's messages. Every thread connected. Every line pointed toward her guilt. One night, while Alyssa sat curled on the couch scrolling through lesson plans she pretended to care about, I stepped into my office and held the sealed envelope in my hand. The weight of it was heavier than paper. It was evidence. It was leverage. It was a weapon. I ran my finger along the flap, feeling the glue tighten under my touch. Inside that envelope was the difference between her life as beloved teacher Mrs. Carter and her life as disgraced former educator. All it needed was the right recipient. I wrote the address in neat, deliberate handwriting. Not to Alyssa. Not yet. To the Brookdale Academy Board of Education. The next morning, I dropped the envelope in the mail, no return address. The envelope took 3 days to reach its destination. 3 days of silence, of Alyssa pacing the kitchen with her wine glass, snapping at our daughter over nothing, forcing a smile when I asked how school was. I didn't have to ask. I already knew. The Board of Education received my package on a Tuesday morning. Inside, the photo of Alyssa kissing Jason Miller, along with a neatly typed and signed cover letter. The letter was short, clinical. To whom it may concern, Alyssa Carter, English teacher and senior class chaperone, was observed engaging in inappropriate contact with a former student during the recent Paris trip. Evidence attached. Please investigate immediately to ensure the safety and reputation of Brookdale Academy. No signature. No fingerprints. No trail. By Wednesday afternoon, Alyssa's email dinged. I was standing at the counter when she opened it, her hand tightening on her phone so hard her knuckles turned white. Her breath caught, and then she read it aloud, voice trembling. You've been placed on administrative leave pending review. Please refrain from contact with students until further notice. She stared at the screen as if it had struck her. Administrative leave? For what? What the hell is this? I looked up from my brief, calm as stone. What does it say? They. She shook her head, red hair falling into her face. They think I've done something inappropriate. This is insane, Marcus. Absolutely insane. I tilted my head, feigning confusion. Why would they think that? I don't know. Her voice pitched higher, brittle. Someone must be spreading rumors. Maybe one of the students. Samantha, God, that girl hates me. Or maybe, it's nothing. It has to be nothing. They can't prove anything. She poured herself another glass of wine at 10 in the morning. And I sat there, hiding the smallest flicker of a smile. Because I knew exactly what they had. That night, while Alyssa spiraled, my phone buzzed with a new message from the school board chair, asking me for a confidential legal consultation. By Thursday morning, Alyssa was unraveling. She hadn't slept. I could tell from the dark half-moons under her eyes, the way she kept clutching her phone as if Jason might magically text her an alibi that would save her. But his name never appeared on the screen. Jason Miller had gone silent. At first, she tried to cover it with bravado. It's fine. The photo must have been a trick of the angle. Maybe someone edited it. You know how these kids are. I let her talk. I let her pile lie upon lie, weaving them as if saying them aloud would make them true. But in between her rambling, I caught the slips, the moments where her voice cracked, where her hand shook as she refilled her glass, where she whispered, almost to herself, "Why isn't he answering?" She meant Jason. She tried to reach him. I saw the texts flash across the iPad before she realized her mistake and deleted them. "Please, we need to get our story straight. You can't just ignore me. This is serious." Jason never replied. Meanwhile, the rumor mill was in overdrive. Parents whispering, students gossiping in hushed tones that somehow reached the ears of reporters. I caught fragments online. Hot teacher scandal at Brookdale Academy. Paris trip gone wrong. Nothing with her name yet. But it was only a matter of time. And then, my phone buzzed. The message was short. From the chair of the Board of Education. "Marcus, we need to speak privately. You've always been a trusted legal mind in our community. Can we consult you on a delicate matter involving a faculty member?" Faculty member. I didn't need to ask who. I read the message twice, then typed my reply with steady fingers. Of course. Anytime. In the living room, Alyssa was pacing, muttering about conspiracies and jealous colleagues. She had no idea that while she drowned herself in panic and wine, the board was already turning to me, the betrayed husband, for guidance. She thought she was fighting rumors. She didn't realize she was fighting me. The consultation was scheduled for Monday, and I knew exactly what evidence I would bring to the table. The summons came in an official email. "Alyssa Carter, you are required to appear before the Board of Education on Monday, 9 a.m. to address allegations of misconduct during the Paris trip." She tried to laugh it off when she read it aloud, her voice thin and unconvincing. "This is ridiculous. They can't just, Marcus, it's one blurry photo. That's all they have. One." But she was wrong. They had more. Because I had made sure they did. Monday morning, I dressed in my sharpest suit, the same one I wore for cross-examinations when I wanted juries to lean in and trust me. Alyssa wore black slacks and a blouse, trying for professional, but her hands kept fidgeting with the buttons. The board convened in a long oak-paneled room. Administrators, lawyers, the headmaster, the chairwoman, all sitting in a neat row like judges waiting for confession. Alyssa walked in with that brittle teacher's smile, the one she used to disarm students. "Good morning. I think we can clear this up quickly." The chairwoman adjusted her glasses. "Mrs. Carter, we're not here for reassurances. We're here for answers." They began with the photo. Printed, enlarged, passed around the table. Alyssa tried to spin. "That's not what it looks like." I leaned in. He leaned in. It was nothing. But then came the hotel receipts. Room 214. Late-night check-ins that matched Jason's keycard records. Her smile faltered. Then, the messages. Pulled directly from her synced devices, screenshots preserved before she could delete them. Her words projected on the screen. "Just don't make it obvious this time." Silence filled the room. Alyssa's face drained of color. That was taken out of context. I was joking. "You know students, they—" "No." The headmaster interrupted, his voice sharp. "We don't joke like this with students. Or former students." Her story collapsed in real time. Every excuse contradicted by evidence. Every denial punctured by another document, another timestamp, another damning line of text. By the end, she wasn't smiling. She was pleading. "You can't do this. My career, my reputation, please, you can't take this away from me." But they could, and they did. The chairwoman's voice was final, almost surgical. "Effective immediately, Alyssa Carter is terminated from Brookdale Academy. Furthermore, this matter will be referred to the Massachusetts Licensing Board for review." Alyssa gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. And I sat there, expressionless, like any good lawyer watching the verdict he already knew was coming. When we walked out, Alyssa whispered through clenched teeth, "Marcus, did you set me up?" The news spread faster than fire. By the end of the week, every parent at Brookdale Academy knew. The emails went out in measured, careful language: misconduct, inappropriate boundaries, pending review. But everyone read between the lines. And once parents started whispering, the story leaked. A teacher, Paris, a student. The details blurred in the retelling, but the scandal grew sharper with every repetition. Alyssa stayed locked in the house, blinds drawn, her wine glass never empty. She muttered about lawyers, about wrongful termination, about how she'd sue the school. But she never filed anything. She couldn't. She had no case. Meanwhile, I played the grieving husband, the betrayed partner. Quiet, stoic. Parents from the school called to check on me, offering sympathy. "You don't deserve this, Marcus. Not you and your daughter." I thanked them with a weary voice, let them believe I was broken. In truth, I was winning. But Alyssa, she was drowning. The whispers turned into shouts. At the grocery store, I watched it happen. She insisted on coming with me, insisting she needed to feel normal again. We walked down the aisles together, her face pale, her hair unwashed, trying to pretend she was invisible. We weren't even through produce when it happened. A woman, another parent from Brookdale, spotted her. She stopped cold in front of the apples, her voice slicing the air. "You don't deserve to teach anyone's child." The words hung there like a public sentence. Heads turned. Other shoppers froze, then whispered, then stared. Alyssa's face crumbled. She grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin, her voice trembling. "Marcus, let's go." I led her out, silent, letting every pair of eyes burn into her as we passed. When we reached the car, she broke. "They can't treat me like this. I made a mistake, a stupid mistake." Her voice cracked, turning raw, almost childlike. "You still believe me, don't you?" I started the engine, staring straight ahead. "Belief doesn't matter anymore, Alyssa. Evidence does." She went silent. For the first time, she realized she wasn't fighting whispers. She was fighting judgment. And judgment had already been cast. That night, an email arrived from an anonymous account. Inside was a video of Jason Miller, laughing with his friends, bragging about bagging the hot teacher. Alyssa couldn't stand it anymore. The whispers, the stares, the silence in our house. It all pressed down on her until she snapped. One night, I watched her clutch her phone with shaking hands, dialing over and over. Jason Miller's number. Straight to voicemail. "Pick up. Damn it," she hissed under her breath. "You can't leave me like this. You said I wasn't alone in this." But Jason didn't answer. He never would. By then, he was busy telling his version of the story. I knew because the video landed in my inbox that same week. No subject line. No explanation. Just a link. I clicked. Jason sat in some grimy college dorm room, a beer in his hand, his friends gathered around him. The phone camera wobbled as someone recorded. Jason leaned back, smirking like the cocky boy I remembered from those dinner parties Alyssa used to gush about. "She was obsessed with me, man," he said, grinning. "I didn't even have to try. Mrs. Carter practically threw herself at me in Paris." The room erupted in laughter. Jason took another swig, adding, "Hot teacher fantasy, right? Who else can say they nailed their old English teacher on the class trip?" More laughter. A chant. "Jason, Jason." I didn't move, didn't blink, just let the video play until the end, when Jason looked straight at the camera and winked. When it was over, I sat in silence, the glow of the laptop screen burning into my eyes. My wife had destroyed her career, our family's name, all for a boy who was now using her as a punchline. Upstairs, Alyssa was still pacing, still whispering desperate voicemails into the void. "Jason, please, just call me back. Please." She had no idea he was laughing about her with his friends. No idea I was holding the proof in my hands. I closed the laptop with deliberate calm. The evidence had just shifted from scandal to humiliation, and I knew exactly how to use it. The next morning, I called my lawyer and said 5 words that made Alyssa's blood run cold. "I'm filing for divorce today." I filed without warning. No argument. No conversation. Just a signature on paper and a courier delivering the envelope to our front door. Alyssa found it waiting on the porch when she came back from one of her hollow grocery runs that ended with more wine than food. She carried it inside, tore it open, and froze. Her voice cracked as she read, "Petition for divorce, full custody the house." I sat at the table, coffee in hand, calm as stone. Yes. She dropped the papers onto the floor, eyes wide, chest heaving. "You set me up. This whole thing." Her finger jabbed at me like an accusation. "You sent the photo, didn't you? You leaked it. You wanted this." I met her eyes. For once, I didn't hide the truth. I let the silence do the talking. She stepped back, almost stumbling. "My God, you destroyed me." "No, Alyssa," I said evenly. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure the evidence reached the right people." Her face twisted, a mix of rage and desperation. "You can't do this. You can't take her from me. She's my daughter." "Our daughter," I corrected. "And she deserves better than a mother who kisses her students in foreign hotel rooms." Her voice broke into a scream. "I made a mistake." I stood, towering over her. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is a bad grade. What you did was deliberate, repeated, calculated, and now you're facing the consequences." She collapsed into a chair, sobbing, clutching the divorce papers like they were a death sentence. I watched her crumble and felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just the cold satisfaction of a verdict finally carried out. The next morning, she whispered through tears, "Marcus, if you loved me once, you'll stop this." And I looked at her and said, "Love is dead. Strategy isn't." Alyssa tried everything. Tears, pleas, screams, promises she could never keep. She called me heartless, a monster, a man orchestrating her downfall. And maybe she was right. But I didn't flinch. I didn't waver. I was a lawyer. This wasn't about emotion. This was about winning. She cornered me in the kitchen one night, mascara smeared, eyes bloodshot. "You don't have to do this," she whispered, voice hoarse. "We can fix it. Counseling, therapy. Marcus, I'll do anything." I poured my coffee and set the mug down with deliberate calm. "I protected our family name, Alyssa. You ruined it." Her mouth trembled. "So that's it. You're just going to erase me?" "You erased yourself the moment you stepped into room 214. She tried to call Jason again. He blocked her. She tried to reach out to colleagues. They ignored her. Parents shunned her at the store, whispers chasing her down every aisle. Even her so-called friends in the faculty lounge stopped answering her texts. She was radioactive. By then, her job was gone. Her teaching license under review. Her students gone silent. Her lover indifferent. Her marriage in ashes. And still, she clung to the hope that I might save her. That somewhere under the ice, the man she married might show her mercy. But I had none left. One night, as she sat slumped on the couch, clutching an empty wine glass, she whispered, "I have nothing, Marcus. Nothing left." I looked at her, steady and cold. "Then you finally understand what you did to me." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak again. Because she knew now, there would be no reprieve, no lifeline, no allies. Just the slow, deliberate collapse of everything she'd ever built. And that's when the journalist emailed her, offering a chance to share her side of the story. The email came late at night. Subject line, request for comment. Alyssa opened it at the kitchen table, the glow of the laptop screen washing her pale face. Her hands shook as she read it aloud. "Alyssa Carter, we are preparing an article regarding allegations of misconduct during the Brookdale Academy Paris trip. We'd like to give you the opportunity to share your side of the story." Her voice cracked. "They're going to print it, Marcus. They're going to put my name in black and white." I sipped my bourbon, expression unreadable. "Then share your side." She stared at me, eyes wide. "What am I supposed to say? That it wasn't me in the photo? That the texts were fake? No one will believe me." For once, she was right. She closed the laptop with trembling hands. "No. If I stay quiet, maybe it'll fade." But silence didn't save her. 3 days later, the article dropped. Full spread. Headlines splashed across the Boston Globe. "Beloved teacher accused of Paris scandal. Husband silent no more." I was the centerpiece. The grieving spouse. The betrayed man who politely declined to comment, but carried himself with quiet dignity in the midst of scandal. The journalist had interviewed parents, students, even colleagues who once claimed to admire Alyssa. Their quotes were knives. We trusted her. She always seemed too close to her students. I'm disgusted. And then the kicker. A source close to the family confirms Alyssa Carter's husband, attorney Marcus Carter, has filed for divorce. She read the article in silence, lips trembling, eyes scanning over each damning line. When she reached the end, she slammed the laptop shut. They're using you, she hissed. They're painting you as some saint and me as what you are, I interrupted. A scandal. She collapsed into the chair, head in her hands, whispering, they'll never hire me again. And for the first time, I didn't have to say a word. She already knew it was true. By the end of the week, she had applied to 12 schools. Not one called her back. Alyssa's desperation became a routine. Every morning, she sat at the dining table with her laptop, hair unbrushed, eyes hollow, sending out application after application. Dozens of resumes, dozens of cover letters filled with flowery words about commitment to education and a passion for literature. Every night, she checked her email and found nothing. The silence was worse than rejection. It was deliberate. Schools weren't just ignoring her, they were shutting her out completely. One evening, I walked past her chair and glanced at the screen. She'd applied to a charter school 2 hours outside the city. A tiny listing with low pay, the kind of place she would have sneered at before. Now she clung to it like a lifeline. Any luck? I asked evenly. She didn't answer. She just closed the laptop, her hands trembling. By then, the whispers had turned into certainty. Brookdale parents spoke to friends, friends spoke to colleagues, colleagues spoke to hiring committees. Alyssa Carter's name was blacklisted. The final blow came in a certified letter, delivered on a gray Wednesday afternoon. She tore it open, her eyes darting across the lines. Her breath caught. No. She sank into a chair, the letter dangling in her hand. I picked it up, scanning the header. Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The words were clear. Your teaching license has been suspended pending formal review. You are prohibited from seeking employment in any public or private school until further notice. Alyssa's face crumpled. They've taken everything from me. I met her eyes, voice calm. No, Alyssa, you gave it away. She broke then, really broke. Her sobs filled the house, raw and jagged, the sound of a woman realizing she no longer had a future. And I stood there, steady as a stone, watching the collapse I had orchestrated. Graduation week arrived, and I knew exactly what gift I would give our daughter. Graduation day was bright and flawless, the kind of June morning that seemed to mock the chaos of the past months. Families gathered under the white canopy on Brookdale's lawn, the air thick with perfume, flowers, and the crackle of camera shutters. Our daughter walked the stage in her cap and gown, smiling nervously as she shook hands with the headmaster. I clapped with the rest of the parents, steady and proud, while Alyssa sat 2 rows back, sunglasses on, shoulders hunched, as if the entire world were staring. Maybe they were. After the ceremony, families took photos under the archway. I pulled our daughter aside and handed her a box, wrapped in silver paper with a white bow. What is it? She asked, eyes shining. Something to remember Paris by, I said softly. She opened it carefully. Inside was a leather-bound photo album, embossed with gold lettering. Senior trip, Paris. Her eyes widened. Dad, this is beautiful. Page after page of glossy prints. Students posing in front of the Eiffel Tower, laughing in cafes, gazing at the stained glass of Notre Dame. Candids of friendships, memories frozen in light. But one page was missing. A blank space where a photo should have been. The gap so deliberate it demanded attention. She looked up at me. Why is this page empty? I smiled faintly. Because not every memory deserves to be kept. She nodded slowly, thoughtful, then hugged me. Behind us, Alyssa stood frozen, her face pale as she realized what I'd done. She knew exactly which photo belonged there. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. The album was for our daughter. The missing page was for Alyssa. A silent reminder that her choices had consequences, permanent, irreversible, inescapable. As we walked away, the sun warm on my back, I felt no anger, no sadness, just clarity. Sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting. It isn't violence. It isn't even leaving. Sometimes the best revenge is letting them live with what they've done. And that's exactly what I gave her. The rest of her life, haunted by the page that would never be filled.